Nihilism. It's a word that sounds heavy, even a bit intimidating. The very mention of it can make people uneasy, as if it carries a sense of darkness or despair. But at its core, nihilism is a simple idea, one that's often misunderstood or misrepresented. Imagine looking at the vast universe, feeling incredibly small, and wondering if anything you do truly matters in the grand scheme of things. That's the essence of nihilism, a belief that life has no inherent meaning, purpose, or value. It's the idea that, at the deepest level, nothing is truly significant. It's easy to misunderstand nihilism, to see it as just a negative or hopeless outlook. Some people think it's all about being miserable and giving up, as if nihilists are doomed to sadness or apathy. But it's not that straightforward. Nihilism can be more complex and even paradoxical. Nihilism is more like a starting point, a blank slate where old meanings are wiped away, leaving room for new possibilities. It's the feeling you get when you realize that the rules, the traditions, the things we hold dear might not have any real significance, at least not in any absolute sense. It's a bit like realizing that the game you're playing has no winner, no loser, and maybe no point at all. The structure you thought was there might just be an illusion. But this realization isn't always a bad thing. For some, it's liberating, a chance to create your own meaning. For others, it's terrifying, a confrontation with emptiness. Nihilism, in the end, is both a challenge and an opportunity. Nihilism, despite its association with emptiness, has a rich history. It's not a new idea. In fact, traces of it can be found as far back as ancient Greece. Thinkers like Democritus and the Cynics pondered the nature of existence and questioned the meaning we assign to life. But nihilism, as a more defined concept, started gaining traction in 19th century Russia. The word itself comes from the Latin nihil, meaning nothing. It was during this time of social upheaval and intellectual ferment that nihilism flourished. Writers like Ivan Turgenev brought the term into popular use, depicting characters disillusioned with traditional values and societal structures. Nihilism isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a deep, philosophical stance that has shaped the way we think about existence, meaning, and the universe itself. This concept has been explored and debated by some of history's most profound thinkers, who have tried to make sense of a world that often seems indifferent to our hopes and dreams. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, is perhaps the most famous name associated with nihilism. His writings challenged the foundations of Western thought and questioned the value of long-held beliefs. Nietzsche argued that traditional values like religion and morality were losing their grip on society, leaving a void that demanded new ways of thinking. He saw this as both a potential crisis and a unique opportunity for humanity to redefine itself, to create new values and find purpose in a world without clear direction. Another key figure is Albert Camus, the French philosopher and writer, who brought a different perspective to the conversation. Camus explored the idea of the absurd, the fundamental clash between our desire for meaning and the universe's indifference. He believed this tension was at the heart of the human experience. Instead of despair, Camus argued that we must embrace this absurdity and live life to the fullest, even without guarantees or ultimate answers. Then there's Jean-Paul Sartre, a giant of existentialist thought who took these ideas even further. Sartre believed that we are condemned to be free, meaning we are entirely responsible for creating our own meaning and purpose in a world without inherent meaning. For these philosophers, the void is not just emptiness, it's a challenge to live authentically and courageously. Nihilism might sound like a heady philosophical concept, but, it's surprisingly relatable. We've all had moments when the weight of existence, the sheer vastness of it all, makes us question, what's the point? Maybe you're going through a difficult breakup, a crisis of faith, or just a period of deep questioning. Suddenly the things that once felt important, your career, your relationships, your place in the world, seem to lose their significance. This is the essence of existential angst, a key element of the human experience that nihilism brings to the forefront. We realize that life is finite, that we are small and insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and that ultimately we all face the same inevitable end. Nihilism isn't confined to the realm of philosophy. It often seeps into our art, reflecting our deepest anxieties and existential explorations. Look no further than films like Fight Club, which critiques consumerism and the emptiness of modern life. Movies like No Country for Old Men present a bleak, nihilistic worldview, where violence is arbitrary and morality is fluid. In literature, authors like Franz Kafka and Chuck Palahniuk explore themes of alienation, absurdity, and the search for meaning in a meaningless world. Music, too, grapples with nihilistic themes. The raw, angst-ridden lyrics of punk rock often express a sense of disillusionment and rebellion against societal norms. Nihilism is a bit like a double-edged sword, sharp and unpredictable, capable of cutting both ways depending on how we approach it. On the one hand, it can be deeply unsettling, even frightening. The thought that nothing matters, that our actions are ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things, can leave us feeling lost and adrift, as if we're floating in a vast, empty sea with no direction. If there's no inherent meaning to life, what's stopping us from giving in to our darkest impulses, or simply giving up altogether? This is a question that haunts many who confront nihilism, echoing in the quiet moments when doubts creep in. But there's another side to this coin, a perspective that's often overlooked. Some people, instead of despair, find a strange comfort in nihilism's emptiness. If nothing we do ultimately matters, then we're free from the burden of expectation and the constant pressure to meet invisible standards. We can let go of the need to live up to external standards or preordained destinies and stop measuring ourselves by someone else's yardstick. This freedom can be incredibly liberating, opening up possibilities we might never have considered before. It allows us to create our own values, define our own purpose, and choose what truly matters to us as individuals. We can live life on our own terms, guided by our own sense of meaning, no matter how small or personal it may seem. And in doing so, we discover a quiet strength, one that doesn't rely on external validation, but comes from within. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If nothing truly matters, then what are we supposed to do with our lives? It's a question that can lead us down a rabbit hole of existential angst, but it can also be an invitation to redefine our relationship with the world. Does the absence of inherent meaning make our actions meaningless? Or does it give us the freedom to create our own meaning, to find purpose in the everyday, in the connections we forge, in the experiences we have? This is where nihilism gets interesting. It challenges us to confront the void, to stare into the abyss of meaninglessness and decide what we're going to do about it.